Good afternoon, everyone. How you doing? Happy Saturday. Let's talk a little more salary cap. But today, in this video, it's not going to be about the Seahawks salary cap. No, we're going to be talking about a few other teams and their salary cap because I want to illustrate something for y'all. I want to really point out something that is going to be happening in the coming months with some of these other NFL teams. So, I've said a lot already about how the Seahawks have a lot of cap space this offseason. I've said a lot about how they can easily create a ton more cap space with a couple of logical cuts, an extension or two, and some restructuring. They could have more cap space than almost any other team in the NFL if they wanted to. It's not that hard. But that's not the only part of the equation here. Because it's one thing for your team to have a lot of cap space. It's another thing for the team to have a lot of cap space and the players to spend it on, right? If you show up to free agency with $70 million dollars plus and nobody's there to buy, then what's the $70 million dollars good for, right? So, a lot of people, they're looking at our presumed amount of cap space going into this offseason, and they're going out and looking for players who are going to be free agents this offseason. And they're trying to figure out the best way to go about their business, the best guy to get here, the best guy to get there, etc., etc. And I want to make this video to illustrate that we don't have the full picture yet there. Whatever you see right now, in some areas, it's going to be a little worse because some of those guys are going to be re-upped by their current teams, right? Like you have some outgoing free agents in places like Cincinnati that are probably not going to ever leave Cincinnati. Like they have those two defensive tackles. I don't see any reason why they would let those guys go because they have enough money to spend. However, maybe an even bigger factor is what is going to get added because there are quite a few teams that are, as of right now, going into 2022 over the cap. Over the cap, and they're going to have to take some drastic measures to get under the cap. That means cutting, that means trading, that means restructuring in some cases, but sometimes they can't even do that. And sometimes there's not even a desire to do that. So before you commit to how you feel about this upcoming free agency class, understand it's going to get a lot bigger before the end of the post Super Bowl pre-free agency period. I'm going to go through three teams here, but this applies for several other teams. And even some of the teams that have money are probably going to be letting a few players go. We have money, but I think there are several players on this team who need to get out of here. So let's start with the most extreme example, the New Orleans Saints. I kind of went over this a little bit in the Hawks Nest stream the other day, but I want to really hammer this point home here. This Saints team is $71 million over the cap. Actually $71.5 million over the cap. They are ridiculously far over the cap. They don't have a quarterback. They don't have a coach. And the party is pretty clearly over. So there's not going to be a big desire for the Saints front office to kick the can down the road another season. Because if you take a look at some of the Saints' bigger contracts, they have a lot of base salary. They have a lot of money tied up in base salaries that can be converted to bonus. But in service of what? Are you trying to build a super team around Taysom Hill? Are you trying to build a super team around Trevor Siemian? You think Trevor Siemian's going to lead you to the promised land if you give him a great team? No. If you build a super team, you better have a quarterback who can take advantage of it. And the Saints, they don't. And even if they could get one, they don't have a head coach. So this offseason might be the season where the Saints just decide to take it. They just say, okay, we've run from this long enough, let's take it. And let's look at the ways they can take it because it's not going to be easy. Take a look at this. Look at their big contracts. The dead cap hit for releasing these players is bigger than the cap hit they have, or about as big as the cap hit they have for the player as is. Cutting Marshawn Lattimore doesn't free up anything. It costs money. Cutting Ryan Ramczyk doesn't free up money. It actually costs a lot of money to just cut him. So what are some things the Saints might do? I think that every single significantly sized contract on this list is up for a reevaluation and a possible trade or post June 1st release. And let me expand on what I mean by that. So let's look at Marshawn Lattimore, the biggest cap hit on the Saints. Due $27.5 million against the cap in 2022. If you release him now, it costs an extra, it costs more. Look, I mean, the dead cap hit is $40 million, so you're looking at $12.5 million extra. However, if you trade him, you actually save about $14 million. And if you can do it post June 1st, you save $24 million. Now, again, it doesn't make the cap hit disappear. It just pushes a good chunk of it into a future year. But that might be something the Saints just have to deal with. They have a team that has no real chance of being competitive in 2022. They don't have a quarterback. They don't have a coach. What is Marshawn Lattimore really doing for you? Now, Marshawn Lattimore might stick around because they just re-signed him, and they might not feel like they need to move off of him right now. And to be perfectly honest, the dead cap hit, even if you trade him, is still significant, so maybe he sticks around. But what about a guy like a Michael Thomas who hasn't really done anything in over a year? Okay? What about Michael Thomas? Okay, cutting him doesn't really do you anything. Trading him doesn't really do you anything. So you're kind of stuck with a dude who did not play in 2021 unless you do it after June 1st. After June 1st, $9 million of that cap hit is still in 2022, but the other $14 million goes to 2023. So you have big cap savings this year and significant cap savings the following year. It should be enough to help you at least get under the cap. And that should be the priority for this Saints team right now, getting under the cap. Worrying about fielding a competitive team, like, get that out of your head. You're not going to be competitive. Your quarterback is Taysom Hill or Trevor Siemian or Ian Book or, I don't know, maybe you go get Teddy Bridgewater. But don't worry about the team. Your concern should be Roger Goodell not forcing your franchise to fold. So if you release or trade Michael Thomas post June 1st, you save $16 million against the cap in 2022. And in 2023, you're saving about a little less than $12 million, about $11.5 million. So that gives you something to really work with here. So honestly, I think the Saints are basically a lock to release or trade Michael Thomas post June 1st. So if you hold on to some cap space after June 1st, Michael Thomas might be one of the players that you could pick up. Now, I'm not a big Michael Thomas guy. I don't really want this team to pick him up, but he's an example of a player that you could get if you wait. Ryan Ramczyk, big right tackle that the Saints just signed. I don't know if they're interested in moving off of him, but if they trade him, they save about $8 million. If they trade him after June 1st, the dead cap hit for 2022 is actually very small. Most of it moves to 2023, which, hey, that's unfortunate, but the Saints put themselves in this situation. They got to kind of shoot their way out here. You could save over $19 million against the cap in 2022, and you would still have significant savings in 2023. And again, right now, like, you just got to find some way to buy your way out of trouble. So maybe this guy will be available. Cameron Jordan. Like I said, every big contract the Saints have, you really might see them move off of it. And you're not going to see it pre-June 1st because there's no savings. The savings are only post-June 1st. So don't be surprised if the Saints make some very big cuts after June 1st. They might designate the cut for post-June 1st and then not have him actually hit the market until June 1st. But we'll know they're going to do it ahead of time because the league year starts in either March or April. But regardless, these are the kinds of things the Saints are going to have to do just to appease Roger Goodell. $15 million savings in 2022 cutting Cameron Jordan. Again, what is the value of having Cameron Jordan when your quarterback is probably going to be somebody who's not even in the top 30 for NFL quarterbacks? Andrews Pete, they extended him a couple years ago. If they release or trade him post June 1st, they save 11 million and they save an additional 7 mil plus in 2023. So none of these options are fun, but they're going to have to pick some of them for sure. You saw how far they were under the cap. Alvin Kamara, another good example of somebody who you could see go. If they trade him, they save 5.5 million. If they trade him after June 1st, they save 11.5 million. So that's another really strong candidate. That's a guy that I'm sure they would love to be able to hold on to for a couple more years so his dead cap hit gets down to 3 million, but they might not have time. David Onimata, a defensive tackle that they upped fairly recently. He's got a cap savings of 4 million if something was done pre-June 1st, but post-June 1st, you split that cap hit, you're talking about a savings of 8.5 million, and then you push the rest of it out to 2023 when, by the way, you already have that void year. So you're already in for a decent chunk of problems paying him then. You're going to double your 2023 void year cap hit. But again, got to do something. The only other thing you can do is convert a bunch of players base to bonus. You could convert Lattimore's base to bonus, Thomas, Ramczyk, but maybe you do that with one or two players that you really like. But if you do it to everybody, all you're doing is making sure you're 100 million over the cap next year. And for what? So you can try to win a Super Bowl with Taysom Hill. Mickey Loomis, very smart with the cap. So I would only assume that he would also be very smart with understanding when it's time to fold, okay? You go all in when it's time to go all in, which he did. But that doesn't mean you always go all in. You don't go all in with 7 deuce offsuit. And Taysom Hill is 7 deuce offsuit. No Sean Payton is 7 deuce offsuit. So that's a taste of what can come. Green Bay Packers, they're massively over the cap as well. 46 million. Something's got to give. And we all know that Aaron Rodgers is probably going to move on. That's going to take his cap hit away, replace it with his dead cap hit. They save about 20 million if they move on from him now. So that's big. That's a big chunk of it. They actually would save even a little bit more if they can move on from him after June 1st. I doubt that's possible. But then you would take it up to about 27.5 million in savings. So, okay, Rodgers is taking you a big part of the way there. And you've got some reasonable cut options. Guys who are going to be relatively... It's manageable to just cut them and move on. Zadarius Smith, you save about 15 million if you cut him. Preston Smith, you save about 12.5 million if you cut him. Adrian Amos, very logical cut candidate, you save about 8 million. Randall Cobb, you save about, 7 million? A little less than 7 million. Billy Turner, you save about half of his $9 million cap hit. You save about a little more than 4 million. Dean Lowry, you save some money there. So there are options, for sure. It's not quite as bloody, but depending on who they end up really wanting to keep around, you could see a guy like a Kenny Clark. They only save 6 million if they do something pre-June 1st, but post-June 1st, 16 million in savings, plus over 11 million in savings in 2023 over what it would be right now. Maybe you could make that work. Maybe that's pretty reasonable, I think. So don't be surprised if the Packers move off a guy like a Kenny Clark that you would never think they would move off of. Billy Turner, right? I think he's their starting right tackle. This Packers team, they know Rodgers is probably gone. Devontae Adams looks like he's gone. There's no way in the universe the Packers are going to be able to keep him. So why would the Packers overextend themselves to keep this crew together? This crew, probably not good enough to win the Super Bowl. We don't know if Jordan Love is good. My read right now is that he's not good. So why would the Packers overextend themselves to keep this crew together when you're looking at a guy like a Billy Turner? You could save over 4 million if you cut him now, or you could save over 6 million if you get rid of him after June 1st. So the Packers, they have a little bit of a better way out because Rodgers getting traded is going to clear up almost half of their problems alone. And then you can get rid of the Smith brothers, and you're pretty close to at least a reasonable state. But they're going to have to make some decisions. And it's possible you could see a really good player shake free at some point this offseason from them. Final team I want to look at is the Dallas Cowboys. And the Cowboys are in a little bit of a different spot. They might overextend themselves to try to compete for one more year. They might. Because if you look at it, the Cowboys, they made the playoffs. They probably feel like we got to try to win right now. Mike McCarthy's going to have his last chance probably before he gets canned to do something. So you may see the Cowboys kick the can down the road. Maybe they restructure Dak. But at this point, I don't know how great you feel about the Dak Prescott contract with how he played the second half of the season. But you're kind of married to him anyway. You might as well marry yourself to him more. You might see them convert base to bonus on a guy like a Zach Martin or a Demarcus Lawrence. But I think more likely is that you're going to see some of these guys get let go, especially the guys who aren't really earning their paychecks. And I understand that's a bit of a red flag, but a lot of these guys are going to go to another team and get paid a lot less than they're getting paid right now. Remember, they're still going to be getting paid by their former team. That makes it a little easier to go somewhere else and make not so much money. Demarcus Lawrence. If the Cowboys release him or trade him now, they only save $8 million and still owe him $19 million. But if you do it after June 1st, then you split that cap hit across these 2 years. Now you're talking. Now you've got $19 million in cap savings in 2022. And you've got about, what was that, $16 million in 2023. Maybe that's a little more appetizing to you. Amari Cooper. You save a lot of money if you let him go. He didn't have a great year. $16 million in savings. That goes up to $20 million if you do it after June 1st. So one way or the other, I don't think Cooper's going to be there next year. The only way out for the Cowboys beyond just the restructurings, which are uncomfortable, would be to do a lot of void year stuff, which is also uncomfortable. So to me, Cooper is an obvious cut candidate. I don't think there's any way he's a Cowboy next year. And then you have guys like Tyron Smith. Injury prone, not the same guy, but still a very quality left tackle. You save $5.5 million if you cut him now, but if you can get rid of him after June 1st, you're talking $13.5 million in savings. And the Cowboys, they are, $21 million over? They got to find some way to trim the fat. La'el Collins, their other starting tackle, somebody that they extended a few years ago. He's making a lot of money. But I don't know if they're so enamored with him at this point that they feel desperate to keep him. They don't really save anything if they do something now, but if they release him after or trade him after June 1st, $10 million in savings, and then another like $7 million in savings, $7.5 million in 2023. So there you go. There's some money. The examples go on and on, by the way. The Vikings. You think the Vikings are going to be trying to kick the can down the road aggressively right now, going all in to win, when they didn't even make the playoffs? I very much doubt that. You're probably going to see a guy like a Danielle Hunter shake free. New York Giants. Yeah, they're going to win the Super Bowl in 2022, guys. Totes promise. All right. They are going to be an absolute dumpster fire. Look for a ton of players to shake free. Guys like James Bradbury are probably going to shake free. You might see somebody like an Adoree Jackson. You might see. I don't think there's any way they can get out from Kenny Ghillied, but anything the Giants can get rid of to save money, you're probably going to see them try to do it. So there's going to be an opportunity there to pick up some players. The Rams are probably going to have to let something go. They've kicked the can down the road a couple times. I don't know how many more times they can get away with it. So you might see the Rams let somebody like a Robert Woods go. The Falcons, I don't see how they keep Grady Jarrett there. You're going to see even some other teams that have money do this as well, but I really want to focus on the teams that have to. These teams have to. Even the Titans, they're a little over the cap. Their best option is probably to just let Taylor Lewan go. So that's a guy who could be a viable starting left tackle in 2022 for the Seahawks if he's available. So more guys are going to shake free. I just went over 3 teams in this video and I came up with over a dozen guys who might shake free for monetary reasons. And some of them would not be interesting to the Seahawks, but some of them really would. So when you're putting together your shopping list this offseason, understand that the shelves have not fully been stocked yet, but they will be. So, on that note, let me know what you guys think down below. I'm going to get out of here. Peace out, go Hawks. Streams later. But we don't know everyone who's available right now, but there are going to be guys. There are going to be some good guys. There are going to be some guys who you can get even a little cheaper, especially if they're post-June 1st cuts, because less teams are going to have money, especially if it floods the market with good players that soak up all the money like a sponge. Keep it in mind. All right. See y'all later. Go Hawks.